Hey everyone, my name is Jessie. Welcome back to my channel, and today we are doing another book unhaul. It is time once again to exchange some old for some new. As you may have heard in a previous unhaul video, what I try to do with all of my books is bring them to a local bookstore who gives store credit in exchange for pretty good quality used books. So that's what I'm going to try to do with most of these books, is bring them in for some store credit. If they don't accept any of the books, I will take them probably to Goodwill or to my local library to donate. So these are all books that, I'm just never going to reread. It's not that they were bad, I just probably won't revisit them and would probably do better in the hands of someone new. So let's go through all those books. The first being 99% Mine by Sally Thorne. I loved The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. Definitely still own that one, but this one just wasn't as memorable. I wasn't a huge fan of the characters in this one and the romance. I just didn't really care. It was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I just probably won't ever reread it, and I found it pretty forgettable. So this one I'm going to bring, and it's in good condition, so maybe someone will pick it up and love it. The next book I have is one that I know a lot of people love, so maybe someone will find it and love it, and that is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. So this one was pitched to me as Clue, like the board game Clue, meets Groundhog Day, and I was like, yes, sign me up. I am here for that. That sounds amazing. Unfortunately, I wasn't a huge fan of the execution. So if you don't know, this follows a man who is at a dinner party, and at the end of that dinner party, this woman named Evelyn Hardcastle, who's kind of running the party, she is mysteriously murdered, and he's trying to figure out who is the culprit. And he keeps waking up in the same day over and over again, but he's in a different person's body each day he wakes up. So he gets different clues by being in different characters' perspectives. And I thought that that sounded amazing. Unfortunately, it concentrated a lot on the more sci-fi elements of the book instead of the actual murder mystery plot, and I really just cared about the murder mystery. I just didn't care about like the rules of this world and like why he was in this situation. I really just wanted to like skip all that and get to the murder mystery. I would say about halfway through it does really switch focus and does concentrate on the murder mystery, but for like the first half of the book I was just like so uninterested. I didn't care that he like wanted to get out of this loop and was like trying to find all these different ways to get out of the loop rather than just solve the murder mystery. So for this one, I just wasn't a huge fan of the execution. I definitely want to pick up Stuart Turton's other book that's coming out this year, but this one for me, I think a lot of people love it, so maybe someone else will find it and love it because I probably won't reread it. The next one, again, is not a bad book, and it's just one I'm not going to reread. I remember enjoying it, but it is How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. Again, this one had such a unique concept about a man who never ages, and you follow his life through multiple generations and kind of why he's like this and other people who are like him, and he's trying to find a daughter that may be like him, and it just had a really cool premise. I love the idea of playing with time and time travel. Unfortunately, the execution, once again, was just not my favorite. I just really didn't connect with the main character at all. I found him pretty bland, and I just therefore didn't care about like his relationships and such that were explored in this book. I thought it had moments that were really great, but just for me, the majority of the book didn't really like connect with me. So again, maybe someone's gonna pick this up and love it. So it's not a bad book, it just isn't one that I'm gonna reread. The next one is a thriller called Lying in Wait by Liz Nugent. This one I gave 3 stars. It was a very mediocre, kind of slower character study type thriller that I just didn't find very thrilling. The twist at the end, it was like not even really a twist that like was supposed to blow your mind. It's more of just a very quiet, character-focused story, which is not my favorite type of thriller. I really like the crazy thrillers with like crazy twists. Like Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough is like my type of thriller, not this as much. So this, yeah, I'm never gonna revisit it ever. And now that I know kind of the twist at the end, it's fine. And again, yeah, I'm just not gonna reread it, so bye. Next one was interesting. This one's interesting. So it's Dry by Neil and Jared Shusterman, however you say it. I loved the Scythe series. I think that that's one of my favorite YA fantasy series ever. Maybe one of my top fantasy series. It's more of a dystopian fantasy, but I loved that series. So I wanted to pick up Dry because this was his most recent release, Neil Shusterman's, and I just found that the characters read really young to me in this book. They were all definitely teenagers and had a lot of like angst, and it kind of took away from the idea of the story. And it was such a cool idea about the world kind of running out of water and what that would look like, how society would react, what would we do. And it was pretty terrifying at times to read this, especially when we're in the middle of a pandemic. But yeah, I just found that the characters themselves weren't very likable, and it kind of reminded me of the characters in The Darkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. If you like that book, you might like this one. It felt very similar in tone to me. It just read a little too young and angsty for my personal taste. Doesn't mean it was a bad book at all. I still gave it 3 stars, but I would have preferred a little bit darker of a tone. And it's pretty dark, but I would have preferred darker. And I thought the characters' kind of like attitudes and angst took away from this one. So again, not a bad book, so someone's gonna find it and hopefully love it. The next one I've talked about quite a bit on my channel, and it's Storm Dancer by Jay Kristoff. This is the Japanese-inspired steampunk fantasy by Jay Kristoff. I think it was one of his first published books. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I would love this. I used to live in Japan. I love the Japanese culture. I love reading about it. So I was super excited, and the idea of Japanese steampunk fantasy just sounded amazing. Unfortunately, you can tell Jay Kristoff isn't Japanese. I noticed some inaccuracies with the way he was using language and such, and if I'm noticing those inaccuracies and I'm not an expert by any means, then it definitely is not the most accurate portrayal of Japanese culture. So for me, there were too many things that I was like, oh, that's cringy. It wasn't bad. I think for me, like the first half of the book was so concentrated on world building and kind of info dumps and exposition. And then the second half of the story really picked up, and I started liking it a lot more because it was getting into more of the story and this relationship between our main character and this mythological creature was really cool. Unfortunately, though, it wasn't something that I'm going to continue on with for the series. I'd rather pick up some other Japanese-inspired fantasies, so if you have any favorites, let me know. But yeah, unfortunately, this one just didn't really work for me. Next one I have is The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney. This one's hard because I actually did enjoy this quite a bit. I just feel like for thrillers, it's really hard for me to keep them around because once I know the twist, I'm probably not going to reread them. There are a couple exceptions. I will probably always keep like my favorite thrillers, ones that I gave like 4 or 5 stars. But this one just didn't do quite enough to make it into like my favorites. So I know the twist. I'm never going to reread it. It wasn't bad. It was pretty good actually. I did enjoy it overall, and this is one that I would recommend if you like psychological thrillers that are more like domestic in nature. But yeah, this one, it's hard to keep thrillers around, so I want to try to start like borrowing more thrillers instead of owning them because just so often I don't keep them. Very similar to the previous thriller, Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. I've kept this one around through several unhauls now because I actually don't remember the twist in this one, but I probably won't reread it because the first time I read it, I gave it 3 stars. And even though I don't remember the twist, I'm like, if I didn't love it the first time around, I'm probably not going to take the time to like reread it, even if I don't remember what happens totally. So this one, it's more forgettable for me. It just wasn't my favorite, so someone else may love this. The next one was a thriller I actually really didn't like, and that was The Chalkman by C.J. Tudor. I just read this last month, and yeah, it just didn't connect. I wasn't a huge fan of the characters, and this one was more character-driven rather than plot-driven, so if you didn't connect with the characters, it kind of it lost me. It lost me. So unfortunately, yeah, this one didn't work out. But I know a lot of people love this story, so I'm always like hesitant to say too much negative because I don't want to sway anyone from reading a book that they may otherwise love. So read the reviews for this one. Some people absolutely love it. And I know that, you know, maybe I'm in the minority on this one and just didn't connect to the characters, and that's so subjective. So I really don't want to dissuade anyone from picking this up, but it just didn't work for me personally. And the last book I have to talk about is The Women in the Castle by Jessica Shoutout. This one is a World War II historical fiction, and I thought I was going to love this, and I kind of went on like a historical fiction kick after reading The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which is one of my favorites of all time. I love that book. I thought after reading that book I was going to be a huge fan of historical fictions that's kind of centered around World War II, and unfortunately for me, this one just I found it very slow, a little boring, and I just didn't really connect with the characters in the way that I wanted to. So it's not bad. Like all of these books, they aren't bad books, but I just remember not connecting with this at all. I think I gave it 3 stars. So this one, someone else is probably going to pick it up and love it. Yeah, this was not my favorite historical fiction, unfortunately. So those are the books that I am unhauling for now. And again, I unhaul every couple months to kind of just make room for new books that I think I'm going to love. I really, really don't want to keep books around that aren't my favorites. I really want my bookshelves to reflect my reading taste. So any book that you see in the background, I really want it to be a book that I really enjoyed and loved. So that's my goal with my bookshelves. And hopefully someone's gonna find these and love them. So today's Booktuber shoutout is going to go to Sandy Gholston Booktube. Sandy's channel is fantastic. He has such thoughtful videos. He has a lot of discussion videos that I think are really interesting to listen to. He has a lot of really interesting things to say to authors as well. He does a couple of like more author tube videos, which I think is really fascinating. And I especially love how unique his discussion videos are. I would highly recommend his channel. He really does read in all the genres, and I just love hearing his thoughts on every book he reads. He just talks about them in such a compelling way. So definitely go give his channel some love, check it out. I highly recommend it. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe. I release new videos every Monday and Thursday, and until next time.